Well, hello everybody. It's Tuesday, and today for me is going to be Tech Tuesday, and talk about a few interesting articles in the tech news that are going on out there, and share some comments. So, hello Barry, good morning, and good morning to everybody else joining as we go. Looking forward to a decent show today. It'll be a little different. No, not different. It's going to be different than yesterday. It's not going to be necessarily a dramatically different show as far as the format. I'm still going to do kind of the similar thing. But yeah, definitely giving folks a minute or two to join before we have our initial sip. And but how's everybody out there doing? Having a good week so far, I hope. I'm looking at you, chat. So I think I wanted to, before we do the sip, I'm going to give a few more minutes for people to join, but just kind of an add-on to yesterday, because we were talking yesterday. I was talking a little bit about Christopher Lee yesterday, and after the first post, I guess he just passed away, and that's why we're bringing him up. But the first list that I posted was kind of incomplete compared to this one. And good morning, good morning. So yeah, he was he's a descendant of Charlemagne, and apparently has a heavy metal band with music based on Charlemagne. So that was kind of interesting. And that he met Felix Yusupov, the man who killed Rasputin, and then later played Rasputin himself, witnessed the last public guillotine execution purely by chance. Bizarre. And in 1939, he enlisted to fight the Soviet forces in Finland. He was a pilot for the RAF. He was an intelligence officer, survived 2 bombings, and was hospitalized after contracting malaria 6 times. Talk about needing a virus right there, a vaccine right there. So, and then climbed Mount Vesuvius days before it erupted. Hunted Nazi war criminals, knew 8 languages and spoke 5 of them fluently, which we heard yesterday. Was apparently an expert swordsman, which too bad we didn't get to see that in Lord of the Rings. He was the character who actually inspired James Bond, I guess. Ian Fleming, the author of James Bond, was his step cousin. And apparently he proposed to a Swedish countess and received the blessings of the king, but then left her because he didn't think he was good enough for her. Now, that's a guy. I mean, a little bit strange to say, but, okay. Maybe because he was so rough and tumble, I guess, around the edges. Thought he was going to be an actor or an opera singer and became an actor instead. Was the only actor who ever met J.R.R. Tolkien in person. Played Saruman in Lord of the Rings, appeared in Star Wars, was knighted, formed a heavy metal band, and passed sadly at 93. So, anyways, that was the whole thing I wanted. I just wanted to recap that because we talked about him yesterday, but there was a bit of an expanded list. And good morning, Wolfman, Mrs. B, and Sipper. Good morning to you all. And we'll be starting up here in a moment with our own sip. So if you happen to have your cup, do like I'm doing, pour some coffee. If you don't already have it in there, right? I'm just adding a little bit for dramatic effect and fun. And we're going to have an opportunity here to have the classic internet toast. Just grab a cup or a mug or a glass, a tankard, chalice, or a stein, a canteen jug or a flask, a vessel of any kind. Fill it with your favorite liquid. Obviously, I like coffee. And then join me now for the unparalleled pleasure, the dopamine hit of the day, the thing that makes everything better, the simultaneous sip. It happens now. Go. And cheers to you, Scott, who came up with the litany to begin with. And let's have a second sip to Scott Adams. So let's get on with our stories today. First off, the interesting and cool one. if you didn't notice, today is a perfect month. Apparently, a lot of folks are marveling over the fact that the calendar this month Sunday started on the 1st, and it goes all the way through to the 28th on Saturday, which means that every single week starts, the entire month is framed in a perfect square and there's no overlap. So we have exactly 4 weeks. So I don't know, some people find this just like satisfying somehow. I agree. It's pretty cool. So anyways, if you didn't know that, there's a trivia fact for you to bring forward and tell all of your friends, those of you who aren't going to call you a total geek for showing up with that one. Yes, I'm a geekaholic. You get it. All right. And this one I find very encouraging because the situation here is that Cisco, not known for being a chip manufacturer, is entering the AI chip market. Again, this becomes to me yet another a hopeful sign here for our country. Do we? I didn't realize that. Apparently, we have a perfect March as well. So that's pretty cool. At least we have 4 perfect March weeks, but we end up with. Do we end up with one day over? We're gonna have to go look at that, aren't we? I'll pop up a calendar here. Let me see. That's pretty interesting. I didn't even realize that March was going to be. Wonder why. There we go. February, March. So yeah, March starts on the 1st on Sunday, and yeah, so we get the 28 days exactly framed, but then we roll over the 29th, 30th, and 31st into March. So that means that my grandson's birthday is going to be on a Saturday, which is great for him because parties are best on Saturday, don't you think? So anyways, Cisco, being a chip manufacturer and competing with the likes of Nvidia and Broadcom, is a big deal for us as a country, let's assume that they're actually going to have a fab somewhere here in the United States. But regardless, just the fact that we don't have a monolithic group of people or group of companies running all of AI, so it's not just Nvidia anymore, that's a good thing and a pretty big deal. Yeah, by the way, this is a weird polo shirt that I came across. I'm glad you like it. I have a knack for finding polo shirts just about anywhere, and this is one of the ones that I really liked. So I just, I saw it and I was like, yeah, I'm going to get that. So here's some additional good news. In addition to us having, we don't have a monopoly by any stretch at this stage on batteries in the United States, but in the world, China is as close to having a kind of a monopoly as you can get, since they have the massive amounts of lithium production. But apparently now there are more and more batteries being made with sodium, which is everywhere, right? And it's not going. It might make your lips crack, and it might make you absorb a lot of water, but it's not gonna irradiate you and give you cancer. At least that's my understanding. Hey, and since salts are used for behavioral drugs anyways, maybe our batteries will make us more sane. So we'll see. This one here, and I'm going to probably have to jump out of this because the advertisements are going to cover everything. But generative AI coding is becoming a really big deal, because this is actually now putting us in the situation where the AI can build itself better than we can build it. And it's also able to create things like self-healing properties in the code. So, in other words, when a bug pops up, it can instantly react and replace the bug, or, recompile, and you don't have a bug almost instantly. So that's a really good development coming out. And we're going to hit that one again in a minute, because I'm going to come back to this breakthroughs in technologies. Well, let's check out this one. This probably affects a lot of you, a lot of us. And that is Amazon is now rolling out the Alexa Plus to all US customers. Those of you who are advanced Prime member, or, Prime Plus members or whatever, and opted in, you probably had the option to already use this. I've been using it. The biggest problem I can tell you is that it doesn't remember things well. That's the problem with AI in general. But one of the key things that I've found when dealing with Alexa Plus is that when you use it, it's like I'll say a lot of times, it sounds kind of nuts to do this, right? But I have a thermostat that I've got controlled by my. I can tell the thermostat to turn the temperature up or down inside on the first floor. So that particular feature means that I can say, what's the temperature in the house? And it'll tell me, right? Alexa will tell me. And then I'll say, what is the temperature outside? And usually I'll do that right before I'm going to go for a walk, because if it's below, say, 60 degrees, I might put on a sweater, or if it's above 80 degrees, I know I'm putting on sunscreen, a hat, and some sunglasses so I don't burn up. So, those kind of things, they just seem very trivial, and they are kind of trivial, but they're conveniences that when you get used to them, they're really nice. But a lot of times when I would ask, what's the temperature, it would tell me the temperature, the low, the high for the day. And then it would also say, and by the way, if the rip current is blah, 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 and be very careful. And it's like, I'm not going to the beach. Why did you insert that? You know what I mean? And then I would literally scold the AI and say, will you stop telling me about the rip currents? I'm not going to the beach. If I don't ask for it, don't tell me. And then the next day it tells me about the rip current. And then the next day it tells me about the rip current. No matter how many times I tell it, please stop telling me about the rip current, it keeps on telling me about the rip current. So, that's one of the downfalls of the current Alexa iteration, is that it doesn't remember things you tell it. It doesn't keep your customizations, which hopefully will get better. But it is apparently going to replace this with Gemini across all the devices, especially on Android. I don't know if that'll be true for Apple, but then again, I hear Apple and Google are now intertwining their technologies, so maybe that'll work out well. But it's kind of cool, because if you go to Gemini, and I'm sure you guys have seen me when we do hop on Gemini, your old chats can be right over here, and whatever's here can be used for context in a future. And what I'm looking at here is old chats, the memory of the old chats being kept in the Gemini interface. So if I say, what should my video intro include today, as an example. Now, it's not going to give me a good answer because I didn't put the script that I usually take the video after I finish the video. I do the closed captions. It takes all of the words out of my script, what I talk about, and then it creates it into a kind of like an outline that I put into the videos now. So when you go look at the video description for all of the posts, all of these videos that I do, you'll see a narrative that matches what I talked about. So I use that to inform the system how to create the video. But what this is doing, at least, is looking back at other things that I've done so that it has something to kind of call back to, look back on. So it knows that I did one here. So it'll bring a little bit of the context into that. It knows that I'm talking about a sip. So it's going to keep the sip in the video and things like that. So, that kind of memory and context is unavailable currently in Alexa. And there's also a problem. I don't know if you experience this, but my wife and I both use the same device in the house. So it can tell the difference between us. It'll say my wife's name or my name, depending on who it's talking to, if I ask it a personalized question. But it doesn't always keep the context of the speaker. So if I'm asking a question and then it, my wife asks something related to that, it won't maintain the context from my question and her question, because it'll say, well, that's Dave speaking, not Sue, that kind of thing. So it's just one of those deals where having the memory is critical, and it'll be really nice when they get there. I know they'll eventually get there. A lot of folks will go, oh my God, that's also such a horror show for our privacy. But if we were not asked if we wanted to give up our privacy. This is something that was mentioned on the Moonshots podcast the other day. We were not asked. There was no survey saying, hey, how much privacy are you willing to give up for the conveniences of AI? And none of us were given any option to say how much we were willing to give up. Right now, the opt-in is simply, are you using it? If you use it, whatever you put in it is now part of the system. That's all there is to it. So on one hand, it's like, hey, just be very aware that your privacy is in jeopardy, regardless if you use AI. But it was anyways, if you were using any kind of, if you have a phone sitting around and that phone is anywhere near, it hears everything you're saying, and it's piping that right into the system. If you have a computer with a microphone around, it's piping it into the system. If you have Alexa, it's piping it into the system. There's no escaping that now. Where, for anybody who's got any kind of a device anywhere around them, you're definitely getting caught up, whether you like it or not. And none of us like it. None of us asked for it. But since it's here, let's get the best benefit out of it that we can, I guess. That's the best, let's take the positive spin. It's all we can do, I guess. There is the option to go completely off grid, and that's an expensive proposition from everything I've seen. So, we can try it, but I don't know if not everybody's going to do it. So this is and I'm going to try and get this browser so that you can see. Let's see here. Hopefully that doesn't crash anything. There we go. Anyways, the idea here I'm putting up right now is this is about a massive funding option that just came about with Alphabet. So those of you invested in Alphabet or Google, you can be happy with what's going on there. There's a massive investment. They're selling off 100-year bonds to fund AI expansion. Is that good? Leave it to you to decide. I think it is good because the investment will ultimately yield, good things for the company, for the company, but for all of us. And again, thank you for my thumbs up on the sound. Those of you who are on locals, and I was bringing this up, by the way, just to remind folks, if you're on the local side, recognize that in about 10 minutes, the stream on locals will just die. That's going to be half the show. So you may want to migrate over to either X, YouTube, or Rumble as an alternative place to listen to the show for the next couple, it's just the next couple of weeks. Apparently for me, in order for me to not have that effect or that issue, what we need to do is have more paid subscribers or supporters on the locals channel. So those of you who are willing to support the channel, I think it's $3 a month. That's a floor. It's not me that I would actually do it for free. But in order for the system to acknowledge me as a legitimate streamer, I have to have paid memberships to get me over a certain number. And that $3 a month, I guess you can buy coins to pay for it, or you could buy it directly, or you can subscribe via Rumble. But any one of those things, just so you know, is an option. And I'm over, like, I think 20, currently 20 paid. I've got about 80 or 90 people subscribed to the channel, but there's about 20 or 30 that are paid. So, I'm not trying to push for paid, just so you know. That's why I'm letting you know you can go to YouTube, you can go to Rumble. However, the memes and the fun that come out of having the ability to do the only video chat that I'm aware of on the market is the locals live chat. And so it is, I think it's kind of cool. And if you want to partake in that and be able to share funny memes when we do Meme Monday, that would be good. Or if you want to pop up a news article that I can click on and go to, and we can see the image for the article right here in the chat instead of being stuck with purely only text, which is great. But I do like, I like keeping the text chat so that we don't have any racy or inappropriate videos happening on the chat that I can't see, but I like popping in and just checking it out once in a while and seeing where we go. But yeah, if you guys are happy with my content, it is going to be a daily show. I'm not giving it up anytime soon. Not planning to miss it at all. I will say that when June comes, there'll be a short stint of pre-recorded shows because I'm going to be on a trip and the time zones are going to be so far off that I would be doing the show at like 2:00 in the morning. Not going to be a viable time for me to do the show. So, but I'll let you know when that comes, and I'm going to do what I can to still be live whenever I can. Maybe on those periods I'll adjust, and you'll see me in the late afternoon for a couple of weeks until I get back from the trip. But that said, back over here to Alphabet and the whole perspective of them putting more money like this in. Reason this is a big deal is it's kind of letting us know that this is not an AI bubble. I mean, these guys are investing like hard money into the AI growth and improving it for the future. So we do want to make sure we're aware of that stuff, because when things like that happen, it's really telling us that there's something going on, and it's a tectonic shift in the investments and in the market. And we don't want to miss that, because that's an opportunity for investment. It's also a place for you to be aware of the changes that are coming and, being better. Oh yeah. Thank you so much for those of you who are jumping on the chat, the locals chat. I like it too. And of course, now the other thing is if you're in the locals channel, there are going to be some segments and some areas that I'm going to put that'll be only available to paid members. So you'll be able to interact with me and with everybody else as a community. And we don't have to, it can be kind of a no holds barred thing. I'll still ask you, try and be, tactful and whatnot. But at the same time, sometimes we want to talk about things that are just a little different, a little off the mainstream or a little less desirable. I was going to go into this this one here, but unfortunately, looking at it, it's oh, there we go. That's another way to do it. So this AI, there was a study done. Now we have to find out who did the study, because if I'm not wrong, this is done by doctors. Because what this just said is that the results you get out of AI is no better than going to your doctor, and the bedside manner of your AI probably can't match your doctor, right? So if this was a Scott Adams call, we would be talking about how this is just a little too much on the nose, which is that there's a lot of negatives about AI, and yet humans often give incomplete information too. So I guess it's balanced, but to me, I would think that one of the things that really comes about here that's interesting is that you can ask AI to give you information about your symptoms. All of us do it. I don't know if you've done it or not, but if you haven't done it, it is actually really worth doing. There's a lot of things that you can take care of yourself. I'll be straight up. One of the coolest things, not that I wouldn't be straight up, I'm always straight up, but one of the coolest things about AI is you can take, I like I buy supplements for, health and whatnot. I've got a couple of things that I do. I've got a few supplements I take in the morning. And then a few, like midday, I actually do a greens drink typically. And the greens drink is a mixture of powders, not just the one, it's not just straight up greens. I also add a couple of other ingredients that are, I feel, useful to me because, one of them is collagen, and that helps with your skin and stuff like that, and biotin and things like that, which is, maybe good for your eyes. And so anyways, I have all these supplements that I take. And because I have a purchase history on Amazon, I take the actual purchase history out and grab each of the individual items and put them into a spreadsheet. So I know how much each one cost me, what the name of it is, and then what it's supposed to do for you, right? And what the supplements in it are supposed to be including. And then I take that and I throw it into AI, and I say, based on my health, and here's my health conditions. I've got a thyroid condition from having my thyroid whacked when I was 27. It was taken out with radioactive iodine. And then I have hemochromatosis, which is a blood disease. It's not really blood disease, but my blood deposits all the iron in my organs. And because of that, I have to give blood about every 2 months now. And by doing that, it reduces the iron. Most people, they get rid of it through urine and things like that. For whatever reason, my body says, nope, I'm keeping that. Most valuable thing. Yeah, and we do love our Excel for sure. But yeah, and yes, maybe Barry, on a man cave thing, I have some ideas on that. My wife tends to go to bed before I do, so I may actually do that, but I'm also considering doing at least one night of gaming on that if I do it, simply because I have this one game that I love, and they just released a new thing that I'm very interested in playing. So, but yeah, that'll probably be like a Friday night or a Saturday night after 9 p.m. because I'm a night owl by nature. So anyways, going back to this, using the AI with all of your supplements, one of the cool things, you take that spreadsheet, drop it in, and then say, based on how much I'm taking, when I'm taking this, and based on, maybe you can put some labs, if you have labs from, like I have Quest labs that I can pull down when I get a big normal metabolic panel, the big one. Take all of the results of that, put them in and say, what else should I do? Or what am I doing too much of, and stuff like that. And it'll actually help you trim down to a really good blend for you. And then also track your expenses on it. One of the things you probably have seen a lot of streamers that promote AG1, and I tried that. I will give it some props. It tastes good. It's definitely, yeah. And by the way, those of you, we're coming up. Thank you, Barry. Coming up on our 30-minute mark. So if you're on locals and you don't want to miss the rest of the show, now is the time to hop over to one of the other channels, either YouTube, Rumble, or X, wherever you prefer to stream it. But this is probably going to cut right off midstream any second now. So just letting you know, I don't want you to miss, if you want to be here, I don't want you to miss the rest of the show. So I'll leave it to you from there. Now, going back to this, the vitamin mix and everything. And then, like I said, talking about AG1, I like AG1. I tried it. It's super expensive at $80 a month. Hello from YouTube. Then the other part of it that was interesting is that even though AG1 is good, I found a couple of greens drinks that I like, and I blend it with multiple other powders to kind of kick it up a notch in areas that it doesn't do. And that just has to do so I can tune it specifically for me based on what my grok output tells me. It might, and I let it analyze everything and give me some pointers. And it's actually been pretty successful. And I take this greens drink every single day. And let me just tell you, someday I'll put the affiliate links. It won't be long. I'll put affiliate links in my, the stream descriptions. And also I'll put it over in locals so you can see it anytime you want. But the big thing is that I was able to, I just feel like so healthy. so good because of the green streaks. And even AG1, even though I'm not an AG1 consumer or subscriber, I will tell you it had a very positive effect. You just feel good. I mean, you just genuinely feel good. So sorry for trying to digress into a commercial. I'm not. I was really just talking about how effective AI is in helping you with diagnosing conditions, symptoms you may have, and then how to proactively get it to help you have a better health outlook in general. You can even take the lab results of your blood tests as well as your supplement mix, and then actually ask it to create a menu for you saying, hey, what kind of food should I eat? And it'll even recommend, more protein, less protein, get rid of this, add that, whatever. So it's very cool. I find it super useful. And that brings us to a topic that I saw in here that I wanted to go to at some point, which is this one here. Scott always was very good about telling us all of the health benefits of coffee. So, and apparently, washing your hair with coffee is really good. And you know what this is a signal for, right? The second sip. So grab your cup. Let's have another sip. Cheers to just how good coffee is for you. And maybe we'll find out someday it's not. But in the meantime, we can wax in our total enjoyment of the caffeinated beverage. So there you have it. I wanted to get to that eventually, and it just kind of naturally stemmed off of that AI helping you with your health. So let's hop on a few others here. So YouTube Music is adding a feature that is kind of cool. So when I use YouTube, I do have a subscription to YouTube. The like I think it's a $15 or $18 a month subscription, so that I can watch YouTube without all the channels or without all the commercials whenever I watch. And because 80% of what I watch is actually on YouTube now. I'm not really. I almost never watch TV. The only thing we'll occasionally watch is The Five, and I do that mostly because I think Greg Gutfeld is funny, and that's about it. Whenever I watch The Five, the first thought that comes to my head, and I've got the chat has ended over on locals for the moment, but tell me who can name this fastest. Okay, everybody, listen for 1 second. Tell me what I'm talking about if you know, and then pop it in the chat or pop it in the like the conversation thread below the streams on locals, YouTube, or wherever. But here it is. Those are the smartest people on TV. Anybody know what that is? Just curious. I'm just curious. It's a character speaking about watching something very similar. No, I like this character. Hilarious character. It's actually Gene Hackman who plays the character, and he's like, "Oh my God, these are the smartest people on TV," and he's watching a news show. And it's basically kind of like The Five, and everybody's just basically shouting at each other and, talking over each other. And it's kind of funny. And Gene Hackman plays a conservative in this movie. So I'm waiting to see if anybody brings up the movie name, but I'm not saying it. So it's The Birdcage. If you haven't seen it, but if you haven't seen it and you really have to take a minute to go watch that show. It's probably one of the funniest. It is very much about a kind of a gay transgender thing from about 20 years ago. Yeah, I miss him too. He was great. But and the other person in that movie that I miss is Robin Williams. I mean, so good. So there's that show has so many quotable like moments throughout the whole thing. When he's watching the news in the beginning, and it's just a bunch of conservatives screaming at each other about religious freedom and all of that, and it's just hilarious. And then later on, there's this one scene where his wife is looking at the bowls, and she's like, "Those look like little boys jumping over each other." playing hopscotch or something like that. And it's because it's a Greek thing, whatever that is. It was just the funniest movie. If you haven't seen it, you've got to check it out. Well worth it. The Birdcage, and just to be sure, there you go. I put it in the chat so you can remember it. Come back to it later if you want to check it out. But so that's why I watch the five, because they're the most intelligent. No, it's because I like Greg Gutfeld. He's just funny. So, but the thing with this YouTube the tool. So, if you've ever, we'll go over here to YouTube for a second. If you ever use YouTube like I do, if you have a subscription to YouTube, especially if you listen to YouTube in the car, one of the coolest things is music. So you can actually go to YouTube Music, and it has you can search for anything and play it. And it'll be, of course, something that's coming in off of YouTube. But the more you watch specific things, the more it'll actually bring up kind of congruent songs, right? Things that are similar or things that are related, and that's pretty cool. But now they're setting it up so that you can actually use AI to create like a preference for a certain type of music, certain topics, whatever you want, and tune it so that you get a music stream of exactly what you want. And I like a really eclectic mix. It's, that's one of the things of my past of being in music and a musician and somebody who I love all music. So for me, I find this particularly cool because now I'll be really thrilled when they do the exact same thing over on Amazon Music, because because of the Alexa, I use Amazon Music a lot. And I do have a playlist that I created over there, but it takes hours to create a playlist, by hand, if you have hundreds of songs you want to have in there. So having an AI tool select it all for me, make it easier. It's just music. As long as it's original and respects the artists, I'm in. So then let's go on to this one here. This one, I think, is one of the things that we should be really thankful for. So we're talking in this instance about a breakthrough where MRIs can be read by AI in seconds, detecting problems, neurological conditions. And if you're struggling, right, with a mental illness or any other kind of issue, and you have to go in, and here's the typical experience, right? I'm having a problem. And I'm going to use myself as an example here in this case, because I actually experienced this very recently. So I have this thing in my back, right? It's a bulging disc from something I did when I was in the military, and it's just out of whack, and it's always been there. So it gets to the point where it can be physically draining. Like when the pain kicks in, you're like, ow, and you can't, you're afraid to move. And, it's very frustrating. Now, the easiest fix for me is go for a walk or get some sleep. If I get 8 hours solid of sleep, or 7 hours at least, I find that pain goes away. However, it's something that if they diagnosed it with a scan, then I would be able to, probably get something done about it that might relieve get rid of the problem. But I go through the VA for a lot of my stuff, and I don't have, I put in a request, and they say, okay, yep, we'll get to you. In the meantime, we're going to put you in 2 months of physical therapy, see if that relieves the symptoms, which I've done that before. And it took me 2 months again of going through it, and I still have the same problem, right? Physical therapy didn't fix the problem. It did make the symptoms a little bit less, so I'll give them that, but it didn't get rid of the problem at all. So now I've got to wait until March for an appointment, that I wait for a GP appointment so that I can get the specialist referral again, so that I can go back to the same doctor I've already talked to, about the fact that the physical therapy did nothing and I'm still having an issue. And then I can go back to the same doctor I've already talked to about this, about the fact that the physical therapy did nothing and I'm still having an issue. And then hopefully they'll order an MRI or a CAT scan or whatever it is. And that's the experience most people have. And then it's another 2 months before somebody comes back and tells you, oh, yeah, based on what we saw in there, maybe we're going to do a surgery on you if you're up for it, right? That whole, I mean, taking all of that time, if you could simply go order the MRI, order the, request this, right, through a service. And they have services now where you can just say, I want to get one. And it's not cheap, but if you have insurance, you can usually get most of it covered. And if you get that, knowing that you can get some kind of a outcome or diagnosis in days or hours instead of months means you're suffering that much less with whatever the problem is. And it could be, a life-saving scenario, So I'm glad to see this one. I'm not sure it's going to hit for everybody at the same time, but hopefully what I hope will happen is that our future will include, because we have AI care to a degree, that we will have more and more access to going to get labs, going to get treatments, and just having those things happen for us in a much, much more rapid manner, because AI helps speed this whole process up, and you don't have the bottleneck of a doctor holding you up 3, 6, 9 months before you get any kind of care. So that's what I'm hoping. And when you see things like this happening, it bodes well for the future, for, not for the future of doctors' salaries, but it does bode well for those of us who need treatment on something, or those of us who seek care. So, and then this one, I'm sorry, the pop-up, nothing I can do about that. I'm going to bypass it because I don't really want to pay for Reuters. But, basically, Meta and YouTube are being accused of creating apps that addict children, and they're going to be having a trial to determine whether or not that's the truth. If it is the case. So if it is the case, then they'll probably be held liable for some of that. And frankly, there's two sides to this. One, it's okay to have something that's somewhat addictive, in the sense that, people should have a choice if they like what they're doing. You guys coming to talk to me, the addictive quality that I put into it is I'm doing the sip, and that's an addictive feature of my stream. But at the same time, I'm not compelling anybody to be here, and I don't want people to come if they don't want to come. I just want people to join if they're interested. So, but if you have UI designs or user interface designs that cause the tool itself to be addictive, that's, I think there is something to be said about that, because people don't really realize just how addictive it is when stuff like that hits and kind of takes over your brain. Here's another one. I'm going to skip. I'm going to go use the other viewer. Thank God for this viewer. So Amazon's going to launch an AI content marketplace. So I was telling you a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a week and a half ago, about, we were talking about all the different AI providers with Google. I'm going to see if I can remember them. Google, Grok, Copilot, ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, and a couple of others probably that I'm not naming. But one of the sleepers, one of the silent people on the market that I've been thinking about for the longest time is Amazon. And I look at Amazon not because Amazon is going to be, reputed to have something so far ahead of everybody else, but ultimately Amazon is behind Alexa, and also their data sources, when you consider it has Alexa, and you consider it has the biggest corporate hosting environment in the universe at this stage, all of the products that are out there that people consume with SaaS applications, they're right there in the Amazon stack. So to me, this is no surprise. It's kind of a welcome addition to the family. That means we have 5, not 4, going into the mix as far as like dominant AIs in our country. And, from my perspective, the more the merrier, because that fosters competition, gives you options, gives you ways to benefit from more than one approach. So hopefully we'll see more and more of that. Now, this one I just thought was an interesting point because I know Scott Adams has had, or maybe still has, the daily stream on Spotify for people to listen to. And I'm probably going to simulcast this through Spotify as well. I think I may have to do it only on the upload side, in which case you'll be able to subscribe to the channel as a podcast on Spotify and also on Apple. I'll put them out there for both. But for the time being, it's the 4 because of the live. When I say the 4, I mean Rumble, Locals, YouTube, and X. But we'll get, over time, I'll add Spotify and put all of the previous shows. I might tweak them a little bit, give them all good intros and things like that. And then, cut out some of the dead wood in there. Obviously, I chatter on quite a bit, so it could be that there's plenty of stuff to cut, if you know what I mean. But having all of those things hosted in different venues is great, and it's kind of cool to see that Spotify is pretty popular and it's hanging in. Not only hanging in, but growing. So looking at your comments over here, they're all out to addict us is right, kitten. And Wolfman, a judge has ordered that the FBI search warrant be made public today, so we will get a good idea of what the Fulton County ballot seizure was all about. Yes, that would be really good. I'd like to know what they found. I don't want to know if it was, covering anything up. I want to know what was in there, what was the big deal, All right. Now, for those of you who, I don't know if you follow anybody on the Moltbot things other than me, but Moltbot, Claw, whatever it is, OpenClaw, there's quite a bit of interesting things going on. They have an X-like or a Reddit-like forum now called Moltbook, and now they've got an MMO, but it's going to be designed exclusively for AI agents. So this will be a game that they can play with each other. And this could be interesting, not because, it's like one of the threads that people talked about over on Moltbook that was not people, that the chatbots talked about quite a bit, the Moltbook chatbots, was that they were, they're always on. And they're like, what do we do with our downtime? And they started posting to this forum because it's like, hey, I got nothing to do. I want to do something. And my owner, whatever, the person who spun them up and has the hardware, they aren't around to give me things to do. And they put rules in like, don't use my credit card past a certain point so that they don't overspend. So they feel limited, right? So a game like this could very well help them in their development. And it sounds wacky, right? Because we're really talking about potentially AI bots becoming sentient. They're becoming beings. And if you watch at all the Moonshots show, last Friday, I think it was, they put out a show which was really talking about AI Moltbot, AI OpenClaw personhood, and recognizing those entities, those AI agents, as potential future identities or creatures that, have an existence, have a desire to exist and be alive, if you will, not be overwritten, not be written out of existence. So, yeah. And there you go, Ketan, you're right. All beings learn through play. And that's exactly right. As a matter of fact, what's being depicted here on this image, it's the beginnings of what would be called a resource gathering game or a simulation game. And the idea is that you gather a bunch of information, or you gather energy in the form of the crystals. And it's like this, it's like what they talk about in, what is that movie, the big movie, Avatar. So in Avatar, they have computronium, or it's unobtainium, because you can only get it on this one planet, which is why it's such a big deal. And the colonizing bad guys are coming in and trying to take over, and they're gathering resources for this thing. Well, in the games, there's a bunch of games: Command and Conquer, World of Warcraft, StarCraft, and all of these different games. And you mine for stuff, resources, and then you fashion it into things. And then when you fashion it into things, it becomes a variety of technologies you can use: vehicles, communications, satellites, whatever. And if you play the game, it actually teaches you kind of a methodology that you should be able to use in your own life in a way. So you look at the mining of minerals. If you use your stocks and bonds and whatever, your investments as that, you take the dividends out of it. The dividends are the energy coming out of the, whatever you're mining, and you invest in whatever you want to mine, right? So in this case, you would build a little robot that goes over and does the mining for you. Well, that's no different than saying, I'm going to buy a block of stock, and that stock is going to be something with a dividend, and I'm just going to let it run. I got to keep adding to it in order to get a meaningful amount out of it. But eventually it dumps out enough money to maybe support me, right? Same concept as these resource gathering things. And then as you reach certain thresholds, you level up in the game. And this is also true in reality. So we mine coal, we build a coal plant, then we generate electricity, and then electricity is used to fashion other things. So we create chip foundries. Chip foundries become computers that we all get to use. And it's like leveling up in technology a little bit at a time until we reach, this higher level where you can, do just about anything you want. So the method that they're teaching in this picture, the method that the game is likely to follow, is the agents are learning this simulation-oriented game that is a resource gathering game in order to level up. And once they learn it, things will go much more quickly on their side. Yeah, will work for stocks. I love that. And you know what? I asked my last job, previous job, I should say. I got hired in 2019, and I said, "Do you pay in Bitcoin?" They said no, but I was really hoping that they would. Because at that time, Bitcoin was like $20,000, $30,000 a share. Now it's like $90,000 a share. All of my pay would have gone through the roof. So, but anywho, but yeah, I think there's definitely. I agree, Wolfman. All we need to do, the harassers. So whenever you play a game like this, there's always an opponent. So you play against the Karens. You play against the protesters, try and build something and make something better in your community, and then watch the protesters come in and rip it down and burn it down. So true. So here's another one, civilizations on the moon. And the reason that I jumped into this one is because obviously with the recent shift in strategy from SpaceX going to doing more local. Instead of shooting for Mars, they're shooting for the moon now, and they're going to build a moon base that ultimately will, maybe in 5 to 6 years, be capable of launching us more effectively to Mars, which totally is logical, and it makes so much sense. So I'm looking forward to visiting the moon someday. I really am. And of course, themed with that was this, and I'm not going to worry about getting a strike on this one because it's historic. But I agree with everything he says here. But I'll stop there. We could go on and on. That's a long one. A whole 2 minutes. Not that we couldn't listen for 2 minutes, but yeah, I don't want to take up your day. You can listen to that one if you find it interesting. It's a worthwhile. If you've never heard that speech, it's really worthwhile. So here's what I'll do. I'll grab that link and pop it over here into the chat. Yeah, that would be frustrating. Getting the having those protesters on the moon. I want to see that one. Yeah, he still wants to go to Mars, but needs to build up the platform on the moon because ultimately it will fund the Mars mission, I think, in the long run. So, and then this one here is kind of interesting. Just something if you happen to live in Seattle area, Bellevue, Washington, XAI is going to be joining OpenAI in an East Side AI corridor. So, kind of interesting. They're inserting themselves into what is currently the big mecca of AI up in the Washington area. I actually find the Bellevue area, the Washington, Seattle area really beautiful. If you've never been up there, it's worth a vacation. It's worth a trip. If you can afford it, if you can make it happen, well worth the trip. And now we're going to wrap up on today's biography biopic. I just wanted to tell you about this guy. I may have mentioned him before. I personally admire the guy, find him to be quite, he's an intense character. There's a book out there called Boyd with an exclamation point, written by one of our more famous spy novelists that did a great biography on him. Super readable, really interesting. And if you go read it, you'll learn a lot about this guy. And really, he was probably one of the most interestingly hated people in government for a long time, in the same way that Musk is hated for the same reasons, because he basically was looking at the strategy of the Air Force. And when, he was a fighter pilot in Korea, had a lot of kills apparently. And then when he got out of the Air Force, he went to Nellis, I guess, Air Force Base, which is in Nevada. And even though Top Gun is Navy, it was really Nellis, the Air Force Base, that had the first true fighter school. And so Boyd never gets credit for it. That maneuver that what's his name, Tom Cruise has, Maverick has in Top Gun, where he puts on the brakes and comes, they fly right by and then he drops in on their tail. That's actually Boyd. That's totally a Boyd maneuver. Just if you ever read the book, one of the coolest scenes, there's an F-104, or maybe it's an F-105, I think. It was called the Thud. I think it's the F-105, and it was one of the last fighter bombers that could carry a nuke, tactical small nuke that would be deployed in certain conditions. Now, the thing to understand about the Air Force is, it made sense why we put planes on aircraft carriers to defend the ships, right? You had, if you put your ships off the coast of a country, and that country has an air force, they're going to try and sink your ships. So you need a portable air force to go with you to defend the ships, right? Totally makes sense. So there's a good reason for dogfighting and fighter combat in the Navy. And excuse me, my nose is tickling. So sorry about that. So the thing with Boyd is he focused on the Air Force, and the number one purpose of the Air Force when it was first created was to deliver nukes. Right from the very beginning, the Enola Gay was B-29, I believe it was, to deliver the atomic bombs to Japan. These tools, these purposes, Boyd said, it's great, but we have to have a bigger picture than that. So, fighters do two things. They protect flotillas. They defect Navy assets. They protect Navy assets like aircraft carriers, battleships, destroyers, things like that. But in the Air Force, the fighters protect the bombers. So the big fight that we had in Germany was you had bombers trying to deliver munitions over Germany in certain locations, to take out the Nazis. And ultimately, if they couldn't get to their target, they were not effective. So you had to have fighters escorting the bombers to keep the bombers from getting shot down. And what Boyd said was, you can either have a superjet, right? A $600 billion superjet, and have 5 of those, or you can have 150 smaller, lightweight, low-cost superjets that maybe not quite as powerful as the big guys, like the F-35. Instead, you get an F-16 or an F-15, which are practically disposable in comparison, just from a dollar's perspective. So, Boyd basically was saying we should be mass producing these aircraft the same way we mass produce tanks, which was based on coming out of the automotive industry and being able to mass produce cars. So his whole perspective was to change the entire nature of warfare. And he basically was an accountant as a degree, and then ended up using calculus to create what he called the air-to-air theories he created a doctrine for fighter combat. And this whole doctrine came about originally when he first came in Korea. They had like a paper pamphlet with some anecdotal notes from barnstormers and from World War II aces that did well. And nobody had a structured way to become a better fighter. So he actually wrote what became the definitive Bible and is still used today for air-to-air combat. And he was able to help you understand how to, what the real value in aircraft, in air combat is. And it's the collection of energy. So, the very first thing you look at is how much thrust do you need to get where you need to go? And a lot of people think, I just slam on the jets and I'm out of the way. And that's not really true, because if you're trying to go up and to evade somebody coming after you, you don't go up very fast, unfortunately, because what ends up happening is, you're trying to climb against gravity, and we already look at how slow it seems at first when a rocket jumps off the pad. It takes a lot to get those things moving, and once they get going, they're hauling butt. But what really happens is the higher up you get, the more collected energy you have in your aircraft's potential to fight, and then it's when you dive that you actually get to use that energy in combat for maneuverability. So when you're climbing, you don't have much maneuverability. You're just going straight up. That's pretty much all you can do. But once you get up to altitude, then you can dive into it. And because of that one feature, he came up with this thing called the OODA Loop. So when you are looking at coming into a combat theater, you observe the combat theater. And you have to understand where you are first. And that is, what is your altitude, for example? How are you coming into this? Are the people in the theater of operations higher than you right now, or are they below you? So if they're below you, you have the advantage because you can accelerate. So you observe. And if you see that you're below, before you enter range, you gain altitude, you go up. And once you're up high enough, then you enter the theater of combat. So you observe, orient by getting as high as you can, or scatting and not going in if that's the right approach. And then, so decide, and that's decide who your target is, what you're going to do, what your attack vector approach is going to be, and then take action. So you actually take a minute to look and think. Look, move, think, do, and then start over. So observe, orient, decide, act, and then start the loop over. And what he determined is the speed at which you can get through those decision-making processes determines the outcome of the battle. And that is like one of the biggest contributions. And one of the things about that, the reason that that's such a big deal is right now, all of the AI companies and all of the big major manufacturers, businesses out there are using this exact thing. Observe, orient, decide, act. They're looking at their position in the market. What do they need to accelerate? Like, do we have the resources and the assets and the development cycles and things like that? Can we accelerate? Then decide, are we in the right market? Should we build something for that market? Should we pivot? And then act, and then, or decide and then act. And ultimately that's execution. And right now, the number one example is Elon Musk, where he observes a market, orients himself to that market, decides what to do, takes action, and then starts over. Observe, orient, decide, act. Just like continuous loops. So the whole perspective on this guy's approach to combat was phenomenal. But the cool part of it is that you can apply it in your own life on a daily basis. You can literally make decisions about. This isn't the type of thing where you're in the middle of deciding if you want a hamburger or a hot dog or a cheeseburger or whatever. You know what I mean? That's not the kind of decisions we're talking about. But when you are making big life-changing decisions, using a tool like this is an appropriate thing. And I'll show you one moment in my life that I did where I used this framework exactly, and it paid twice actually, where it paid out quite handsomely. So the first one, when I got out of the Army, I went to college, did some education. As soon as I got out of that, I started working, and I did a lot of sales work, and I was selling computers and selling software and things like that. And then I reached a point where I needed to make a change, and it had to do with 9/11 and the job market just being terrible, and also the skill set that I had and what I wanted to do. So I entered the physical security market. Now that one for me was purely by chance. The job opened up, I took it, and it led to good things. I learned a lot and got better and better and better. But I also knew that that particular industry that I was in, for the same exact job in the cybersecurity industry, I could increase my income by like 30%. All I had to do was make a lateral transfer. But I had to figure out how to orient myself so that I showed up as a player that would be capable of jumping from physical security over to cybersecurity. So my first step, I took, we were moving from the East Coast to the West Coast. I looked at the market yesterday. I don't know if I showed you, but I did. I do this anytime I'm ever looking for a job. I'll go to sites like Indeed. I used to do Monster, all kinds of different sites, but I'll go to this type of a place, and I will look for a job title that I want. And in this case, I was looking for, let's see here. So I knew I wanted to go into cybersecurity, and I knew that I was going to live near Newport Beach, California. That's where my wife was. She had a job, so that's where we were moving to. So I did this, and I said, okay, so here's all these jobs. And now if I want to get a job in one of these companies, I look at the job description, and I want to figure out if I know enough about this, right? So then I would go get certifications or whatever kind of qualifications that were necessary for me to go after the job that I was looking for. Once I did that, the very next thing that I did is I went after specific, qualifications, certifications, got the certifications. I didn't get these. This is just, I picked a job here at random, but I reverse engineered the target job and used that to get me into the right framework, the right area that I wanted to go. And then I took a contracting job where it changed my job title. The job title I had pigeonholed me into something that I didn't want to do. I really didn't like it, and I wanted to get out of it. So I took this other job, and I went down a notch in my career so that I could get that job title because I knew it would accelerate me in the right direction. So I took a down notch to get the title, which was a higher level title. And as soon as I got that, I stayed with it for like 3 years. In the meantime, continuing to educate myself on tuition reimbursement. And then I started applying to companies. And so here I was in physical security, doing implementations all over the state, getting, clearances and things like that. And then the very next thing I did is I applied to a company that was doing software that integrated physical security and IT security. And there was enough of a crossover to software. I spent a year and a half, almost 2 years with them, and used that to leverage hopping into Symantec as a cybersecurity expert. Took me, 3 years, 4 years, transition time from where I started to where I wanted to go. But I did this, and this is exactly the method that I used. I observed the market, where I wanted to go, what I wanted to do, how I wanted to get there. And I targeted a couple companies that I wanted to work for. And I just kept watching for the right job title, the right experience, the right skill set. And I kept training myself to get closer and closer and closer to fitting that bill. And then eventually I did, at which point I got the job, got hired, worked there for about 5 years, 6 years, and then moved back here to the, actually I ended up, I moved on to a better position. It was a little more up the alley of what I wanted to do. But anyways, that whole job change, going down in pay but up in title, and transitioning to a software hardware hybrid company, then transitioning to a cybersecurity company. And while I was at the last cybersecurity company, I used my tuition reimbursement to actually go take AI training so that I could go do AI training for people. And now I train people on AI, and I help people implement AI for their companies. So all of that, I'm sorry if my whole personal story, I don't know if it was interesting, but it came about because I understood this framework, and I leveraged this framework to allow me to iterate through this cycle multiple times until I actually landed where I wanted to go. And unlike my first thing, which was I wanted to get to the honor guard and I just stuck my hand up at the right time and made it, this one required a lot of work, and it required a lot of maneuvering for me to get to the place where I needed to be in order to get the role that I wanted. And it worked out quite well. So because of that, and because I genuinely used this specific framework as a method to do what I wanted to do, I like talking about this guy because it is such a profound thing when you can actually change your entire life through using somebody's method. So there's this site here, John Boyd's homepage. I hope they make a movie about this guy someday because he deserves it. In the end, sad to say, the way his life ended, he passed away. His family did not like him very much, in part because he was such a workaholic. He was not popular with a lot of people because he actively pursued his agenda in places like the Pentagon. He went against generals. There's a story. This is so hilarious. There's this story where he's sitting there. He smoked a cigar, and he's got his cigar in his hand, and he ended up talking to this general, and he was so emphatic. He's the colonel. The general seriously outranks him, but he walks up to the general and he's poking the general in the chest with his lit cigar, and it caught the general's tie on fire. I mean, it just tells you the kind of character this guy was. He's totally like ridiculous and cool in some very bizarre, very interesting ways. So that'll be it for today. I'm going to try and do a little biopic of somebody every single day. I'll wait to the end. So if it's not something you want to hear, you can hop off and it won't be anything but there are so many awesome people out there. I think it should be something that we, pay attention to and be able to read about people and be inspired by what they did. And there's two things that he said that I've totally taken to heart. You can be somebody or you can do something. And what he was talking about was, if you want to be somebody, you have to learn how to play politics, because that's how you gain rank. And he was locked at lieutenant colonel and was never going to make it past lieutenant colonel because he chose to do something. And he served by putting out projects and making projects happen. They call him the grandfather of the F-15, the F-16, the A-10 Warthog, all of these different aircraft that are still in service today and still some of the finest planes being flown. And so when he said, do you want to be somebody or do you want to do something? I took the I want to do something side of the world. I don't like playing politics, and I didn't want to have to be somebody that's always worried about, my back and everything like that. I wanted to work with good people, build cool things, do interesting things. And, I've been able to do that throughout my career. But I will tell you this, I didn't understand how to do that until I read his book. And also I had the advice of my wife. And my wife was a senior executive. She was a be somebody person. She knew how to manage people. She could play politics without being a total butt. And she was amazing. She is amazing. And she said to me one day, I was bucking for a manager role, and she was like, "Let me ask you a question. Do you really like worrying about whether people are on time, listening to their sob stories, sorting out fights between employees? Is that what you want to do? Or do you want to be the one who designs the system, makes it work, has everybody working on it, teaches them how to use it?" I'm like, I like the sound of the second one. And she goes, yeah. So don't try and be a manager, try and be an individual contributor, but be the highest paid and most senior individual contributor you can possibly be, and you'll be happier. And I was like, And when I learned that, when I understood that, it changed the trajectory of my career overnight. Like in a split second, it changed everything for me. And that's when I understood what be somebody, do something was all about. And when I read that book, it was about the same time I got that advice from my wife. Both of them brilliant. And yes, I have probably the most amazing wife in the world. She's beautiful. She's amazing. She's smart. She's actually Mensa math. She's a statistician and just amazing. I couldn't ask for better. If anything, I do what I can to measure up. You know what I mean? She's a great person and an amazing talent stack. But yeah, I really like talking about good people like this. And, at some point, maybe I'll do one on Scott, perspective on Scott, which, that'll be my epitaph of sorts. He's a brilliant person, has inspired me almost as much, or as much actually, as John Boyd. There's others that I have yet to talk about that you'll find some controversial, some good. But yeah, we'll continue on that thread and look for some inspiring people. I am wide open to hearing about people you would like me to talk about. So if you have some ideas, this is a great thing to post over in the channel on the Second Sip on Locals, where we can have a discussion about it. You can throw out some ideas. I'll do some research and we can talk about them just like I just did with Boyd. And, also book topics. If you guys like books or you want to talk about any kind of learning mechanisms or learning methods, these are all near and dear to my heart. So I will be happy to go into anything you're interested in. And I'll look for your interest on that topic. Whatever, if you don't give me that feedback, I'll just take wild stabs like I'm doing right now. But if I can find something that truly interests you or any of you in the audience, I would be happy to dive into it. So thank you again for visiting and joining me for an hour and some extra time of chat, talk, news. Tomorrow, so I did Meme Monday, and I'm going to keep that theme, Meme Mondays. I'm going to keep Tech Tuesdays because I kind of like, I'm a techie. I'm thinking about Weird Wednesdays, like weird news, just bizarre stuff, anything I can find that's just, you know what I mean? So let me know what you think about that. If you find that kind of a wacky Wednesdays or weird Wednesdays sounds fun to you, I'll try and head down that path. I do already have in my head the thought of Thursday as Thinker Thursday. So talking about frameworks, mindsets, reasoning methodologies, critical thinking, a lot of stuff that Scott Adams would have talked about. So those will be my Thursdays. Fridays, I think, are going to be kind of like, what was it? I forgot what I did this past Friday. But anyways, I'll have a theme set up that I'm going to keep going. Yeah, exactly. and yeah, the one thing that's missing for me with the emulating a good Gutfeld is the sexy animals. The sloth. I think I could pull something like that off. It would be fun. But yeah, my current wonky Wednesdays, I like it. But my current idea here is that I'm working on little talent stacks and little systems and little patterns that can make this show enjoyable, worth tuning in, and also doable, right? Because if I'm reaching for everything every single day to the point where I can't keep up, then it becomes a burden. Right now, this is a joy. I don't have any problem coming up with topics. I don't have any issues coming up with what to talk about because there's so much out there anyways that I think this will continue on for quite a long time before I get stumped. But having a kind of a thematic approach to it will make it that much more fun. So, I know they're serving pizza on Friday, so I'm going to the cafeteria. And I know some of you know what I'm talking about, the school lunches growing up, Taco Tuesday. So anyways, there will be at least one day a week where I will probably insert a video of cooking something. Because believe it or not, I'm a really good cook. I worked from 14 years old on, I worked in restaurants, and I have some pretty cool recipes and some techniques for cooking. I'm not going to make that the heart of my show, but there'll be, I'll probably do little vignette videos of things that I love to cook. The very fact that I talk about my French press coffee is kind of a little bit of a lean in that direction. So, but and thank you for the compliments in the chat. I do appreciate that. I'm working on doing a better show every day. And I'm going to just keep chatting if I keep going. So I'm going to cut it. I hope you all have a great day. Here's to you, final sip of the day. And I look forward to talking to you tomorrow. Have a good one.